All right.
Oh, now I have to leave.
I should wear my jacket, but I'll be so miserable. Just got quiet when you sat down. Yeah, we thought you might need it.
Oh, yeah.
You rid of all those butterflies?
Yeah,
So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to thank everyone out there watching us as well. This is the first annual 8+8. This is an event that we've put on where we have really fantastic people just coming together. We've already been having great conversation. We're really going to continue that conversation. And we are excited for you guys to hear that conversation. Before we get started with that, I really want to say thank you to Crossville Studios for hosting us in this beautiful showroom. And then to kind of get started, like I said, we have wonderful people, a fantastic, lineup of designers, project managers, people from construction, from furniture. We kind of really run the gamut here. So with that, I'll kind of start it going. We were kind of starting to talk about partnership and kind of what that means to different people and how it's affected by different people. We really started to talk about, from the GC side, from the furniture manufacturer side, even from client relationships, from PMs, all of that. So I really kind of want to throw that to the group and let's just kind of get it going. So who would like to kind of start off? John, you look great.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. Cass, thanks for putting me on the spot there.
That's what we're here for.
So, actually, I would like to speak to partnership. That's one of the first lessons I learned in this business was the value of creating relationships and working together. And probably learned that lesson about 6 or 7 years ago. One of the first things I do on any project is I try to connect with my designer. I call them up, shoot them an email, and just get on the same team with them because the two of us are working towards the same goal at all times, and that's making sure our client is taken care of. So the closer our relationship is, the better we're going to look to that client, and that's one of the first things I like to try to do.
Cool. What about from a manufacturer side?
No, we don't like to partner. We love to. Obviously, we encourage it early and often. I think, it's funny, I was talking to one of my manufacturers today about how many more ways we have to be in touch with one another. We have a lot more. And yet, it's so hard to absorb everything that is coming at you. So while I can reach out to maybe 1,000 people on a Monday by saying on an e-blast, that goes right into the filter. So nothing, that gets filtered out. No one hears that. Nobody gets past like 2 bullet points on an email. If you get to the 2. So there are fewer opportunities for us to sit across the table with one another, but when we do, I think we're amazing at solving problems. Or even if there's not a problem, just making something better, communicating, being honest about expectations, how much it costs, what I expect it to cost. There's nothing that can replace that. So not only the relationships, trusting one another, collaborating often, but also if I trust someone, I communicate with them better. It's just a fact.
Well, and I think as a designer, partnering with your manufacturer on the front end to understand those costs, to make sure you're designing on budget, to make sure that you're hitting your client's fees and expectations, partnering with a contractor to make sure that we're delivering something that can actually be designed. It's all about a partnership and partnering with the client to make sure that we're hearing their vision and that they feel heard.
When you talk about partnership, let's taking GCs for just a minute. When do you guys like to get involved? You reach out, but what's the most opportune time for you guys to really, get in there and, get your feet wet?
As early as possible.
Yeah, I think in today's market, with everything as busy as it is, the earlier we're involved, the more value we can add. The more opportunity we can bring some contractors to the table early and help you figure out what a budget really should be so you can build around that and not have to circle back or redesign. because something's not in line with the budget. I mean, that's what tends to drive a lot of decisions. And so the earlier we're involved, especially right now, because everything's it's great we all design and build, but those guys that have to actually do the work, the subcontractors, are so busy right now. It really comes down to like finding the right guys that are available, and then the right guys who trust us enough to come to the table with us and share their experience, share what things cost, how long it takes. And so that's, if we can get involved during DDs or SDs, then we feel like we can add a lot more value.
I want you at the table very early, because a lot of times if we can talk to who's ever fabricating that monumental stair, or we could talk to the mill worker to figure out what we're doing with these architectural details, we can fabricate them in a way so we get what we want and they get into the project. So if we could partner on that and, look at materiality with our partner on the, manufacturing side and get to the solution, I feel like we all have to rely on each other, and it's not a food chain anymore, it's more of this, and it's got to be that way to be successful.
Coming on early in the design is just another opportunity to start building those partnerships and those relationships. And then you're together in the front end, and then you're together as you progress through these projects. And then it's just a stronger dynamic, I feel like.
I think there has been probably a shift that I've seen over the last several years of more of an architect as a master architect who has an understanding and a vision, but they sort of go through this process where they realize those relationships of their career and how those relationships build off of, it's humans trying to solve problems for other human beings. And when you open that up, it's you don't have to be everything to everyone. You just want to be something to someone and just do something meaningful. So you embrace bringing on as many people that can inform that relationship as early as possible. And it's not a contractual, sort of ego-driven, curator of all amazing things. Right? But through that conversation, you can meaningfully engage and inquire to understand, okay, we can do something more than I or any other designer would have the power to imagine is possible. And so I think if you build those relationships and you realize other humans just have that inquiry and we're drawn to that, and you find that network, you find those people who do that for you, across many different layers of partnership that sort of contribute and different sort of skill sets. I think that's how you really sort of then build and hone that. I think over time.
So,
Bottom line is be nice.
cheers to that, yes.
Yeah.
So true.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
In addition to that, it's a matter of going through with what you say you're going to do, because you start being trusted, and if you don't provide the value that you have promised, you'll end up breaking that trust and therefore that partnership. So always being accountable and reliable, I think, is one of the biggest partnership building opportunities that's out there.
Yeah.
And that's how you call. It's not the email. I'm calling you because you did it for me last time.
I would agree with that.
And I'm picking
Right.
up the phone and you're the first person because you
Right.
deliver.
It's
Yeah.
never that will something go wrong somewhere. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, and they're humans that are making all of these things. So it's how are you going to handle it if something happens? Are you going to jump on the phone? Are you going to talk to me about it? 20 years ago, I read this in a book because I'm not old enough to have been in this industry 20 years ago. But there used to be a hierarchy. And we talked about this last week. There was a hierarchy, to your point, and we didn't share on the manufacturing side. I mean, I can't speak for construction. We didn't share maybe a lot of things that we knew that could be pitfalls because there was this element of disappointing or fear. I think as a whole, we, collectively in the industry are better at not only asking questions, but hearing the answers and being open to limitations or to something that's going to enhance. It is much more collaborative. And I think as a whole, we are more appreciative of one another's time. I like to think that.
And
I agree with
I
the-
think to that point, like, there's 100 ways to skin a cat, so if we get involved with the construction group a lot sooner and we have a design idea, we're probably coming up with the most expensive way to do it, but you can help us to come up with something that's going to be the same way, but maybe a little bit more affordable to build. And then same thing with furniture. We may have an idea of something that we want in the space, and then it doesn't meet budget, so we can work with you to help us come up with something that's going to get the same look and feel.
And I think there's elements that you're willing to throw yourself on a sword for. Like, these are the key ideas that really sell the story. And then there's other elements like, okay, if I need to cut budget, I'm okay with the $40,000 of savings here, but don't touch this. And, partnering with your contractor to give you that information and to reach out to you before they kind of present it to the client is key to a successful project.
And back to, I think, Tracy's point of, is a project going to go awry, get off the rails, have an unexpected turn? It's not if, it's when. And I think, like everyone's been saying, it's like, we're in a different space today, and everyone here at the table realizes that, and partnership is so key to that. And it's usually around budget and schedule, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
how do you not partner with, your contractors, your subcontractors, your reps that can solve those problems around schedule and budget?
But it's so funny to me though, because I also think about, like, we talk about budget a lot, all the time, like, it's just so pervasive. But at the same time, I look back and, like, objectively, like, as a human being, not as a designer, like, take off the hat for a second, and there is, like, the most meaningful experiences and memorable moments of my life are often not the most glamorous, so what is it about recreating those experiences for our clients, for end users, for people who sort of, like, live in those spaces that actually, like, have other qualities that are more ephemeral and aren't necessarily, like, about perfection, about, like, they're not visual, they're, like, ethereal. And I think that that's something that we all kind of, like, try to, it's kind of resource-wise forcing us to get back into, is understanding what are those experiences, I guess.
I don't think it's just the people at the table, too. I think we rely on our MEP partners, AV, all the consultants that we bring to a table. We used to just hand over, a base set of drawings. Now we're sitting down and saying, this is the concept. And you got to help me get there. And however we collectively get there is okay.
I totally agree, because from the client side, construction is certainly a huge chunk of it, but you have to balance other things that if we don't establish a strong construction budget, you're gonna have to give and take, because security has needs, AV has needs, there's decommissioning spaces, like, there's so many different sides that, yes, this is a big piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece.
It is.
So we have to do it right. And we're trusting that the people that we call are giving us the right information. So we can establish the expectations with the big clients who probably are finance people, so that's why it's about the budget.
And then
all
back
comes down
to
to
early
money.
partnerships too, kind of putting that stuff together.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make each other look good in front of the client, especially. That's
Yep.
something that I remember learning really early on, that, as the designer and the GC, we're not against each other. We need to make each other look good, because I might mess up and I want you to have my back, and you might mess up and I'll have your back. And to the client, it should all look easy and good. And we have this great relationship, so they feel confident in the team. So I think that's just something that I learned a long time ago.
Do you feel like that's more or easier as, like, design build?
Well, you have
mean,
to be, because you are part of,
You're
you are the
one-on-one.
same team.
Yeah.
But it works either way. I mean, even when you're not design build, it's important to act that way, act as a team.
Honestly, I think
Especially for the client.
it goes back to time. We are so short on time, and we're trying to deliver these amazing projects, and clients are paying for more and more design lately. So we have to make sure that these really cool, developed 3D renderings become life. And from SD, we need our contractors on board so that they're fabricating this amazing stair or these different elements, in the space, and that it's realistic and that it's in budget. So it all goes back to time. We need to make sure our subcontractors are on board. I mean, they help me think through 3D, movable elements that are in the space. So they modeled that for me, and I got to review the drawings. It's all about how can we help each other, and we're learning from it. I mean, I learn every day from our partners. So it's amazing.
What kind of technology helps you do that?
BIM. I mean, we're all in the, in this 3D modeling program. Right now, we're doing a project, we're all in the cloud, so it's moving, everybody's live, and we're all drawing together, so they're laying mechanical right where they see our RCPs, they can reference our ceilings, at the same time they're referencing, my kitchen consultant can see the walls that I've drawn, and I could figure out, my servery. So it's all happening at the same time. We can ping each other, we're literally emailing, so it's all happening at that moment. And it's making the design so much faster for a project that's huge. So it's really, I feel like it's a successful, thing to have everybody in at the same time, very early.
Endless errors and change orders on the back end too, right? Like you're all working together, looking at what everybody else is doing the whole time, so.
It's all about minimizing those things that slow down, can drag down the project, RFIs, questions, clarifying.
Yep.
And from our standpoint, whether it's PlanGrid or Newforma or Procore or, there's a number of programs where everybody collaborates on the AEC side. And, it's really, cloud technology finally was so cheap and available that those technologies started transforming the way we all work together. We're all right there together, virtually real time. I mean, we keep encouraging our clients more and more to log on and be a part of it, because a lot of them aren't used to it still. And, it's a great.
Well, I can tell you that clients have at least latched on to Pinterest because
Your lips to God's ears.
Architects
And
never
back.
it's true. I mean, we
Talk about no client bashing.
no client bashing. It's the honest truth.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, it's a good way for them to express an idea rather than them just to kind of wave their hands like, well, I kind of want this, but now they have like physical things. But that also comes at not a detriment to us, but essentially it's like having a rendering and giving a client a rendering and going, I want this.
It
And then when it
heightens
doesn't
their,
look like it, you're like,
Yeah.
why
I
doesn't
think
it
it
look
kind
like
of
this?
sometimes is a detriment to us, and I'll just speak honestly to that, because as our clients have more and more access to what their dreams may behold, we have to get smarter and smarter as designers, because it's a psychological game, really, is what we're doing. And it's like, okay, well, you have access to Pinterest now, but I've got access to my mind and, talent and all of these things. And I want you and I to make it turnkey, and I want this to be successful.
Well,
And original.
Sure, honesty in my mind is the key, just from the very beginning. When you see the Pinterest images and you are talking about what the goals and aspirations of the projects are, when a client's showing you something that when you look at it, they're seeing something that they think is beautiful or that they're really drawn to, and you're seeing all this fancy
The
trim
dollar
and
signs.
these expensive light fixtures, so you can start to kind of break it apart. And I find that being able to speak to that in a way that's not condescending, but that's like, okay, these are the things that I'm seeing when I'm looking at this. What are you, like, when I tell you that, what are you drawn to when I'm starting to break this stuff down? And like, let's establish what the goals are so that I know like what it is that you're responding to here. Because it could be something really particular or it could be something really general, but I think the more honest that we can be, instead of saying, oh yeah, we can do that.
But what are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, it's sometimes those pictures, they communicate their vision clearer. Like someone can verbally explain something and you don't see it, but maybe they're just reacting to a leather sofa. Like that's what they love.
Yes, and in the
So-
photo, it's just a leather sofa. It's not the ceiling, it's not the wall, it's not that amazing element over there.
But it's communicating with them and asking those questions to make sure you have an understanding of their vision to be able to put pencil to paper.
and how many times have you gone in and they show you these ideas or these visions, and it's because probably everyone in this room and those watching can think three-dimensionally. It's hard for somebody who does not live in this industry
Most people who
to
aren't
visualize
read a plan.
what a soffit looks like and an elevated ceiling or a built-in banquette. They just don't get it. So those are devices and tools that they use to interpret what their expectations are.
Yeah,
I think it's important to take that knowledge and how do we translate that into our own technology, into our own 3D models that we have, and how can we use those to partner with our contractors and show them, like, these are images that our clients have shown us, this is what we've created. We're still in the early front side of this, so how can you help us put a number to this? How can we start pricing this? How can we make this real for our client and get this in budget, get this in time? So it all comes back to it's full circle and we have to work together.
I'd rather have a client come in with 10 crazy ideas than to come in and go, I just build something for me. It's like,
Absolutely.
I think you want to start a project, in a place of like immersion, understanding the client, their business, their brand, applying some research, visioning with them around
Right.
developing a concept. And then there's maybe a time and place for the shared Pinterest board to understand, to your point, we see visual all the time, but it's a nice platform perhaps to have a commonality of having the conversation on a visual level of what inspires you, what about this space feels welcoming or whatever, but the detriment is when it starts with, here's 5 images, I want my office or whatever space to look like this. Then it can get in the way of starting in a unique place.
And super, like, it's amazing that I actually think clients are far more visual communicators now than they have ever been before. Like, I think that's actually positive because it allows us then to, like, start at that place and then go to another place, which is like, oftentimes I think our clients are not actually the ones affected or the most impacted. Like, we're actually with them, a team, creating some amazing experience for someone who's going to be actively using that space. And so, like, if like we're all in agreement on, like, okay, we've talked about, like, this place, but have we talked about how the person got to that place? Like, what were their expectations that they brought coming to that place? Like, what was their experience on the street? What was their experience at the front door? Who talked to them or didn't? And then you then can elevate that conversation, but you can start from a place where they, like, have this, like, understanding and they have access to more information, which means that we don't have to use time to, like, close that gap as much to, like, get to where we need to go to, like, create these, like, at the end of the day, delivery industry, like, it's all about that actual, like, human experience that we create. And I feel like all of these, like, tools and evolutions are pushing us to just be in a better place to understand all of those things, but, like, at a scale that's, like, unprecedented, right? Like, you just have, like, moments of all the projects that were great. We have a better opportunity now to create more great places than ever before.
And also with the technology, we are able to also share those ideas with them to really show them the scale and the, this really sexy stair that we might have not been able to show in 2D line drawings now. We can actually walk them through the space. So it's pretty amazing the technology that we have that can really help them see our vision come to life.
Do you guys use VR?
What?
We do.
You guys use VR?
Yeah, we do. We use VR and Inkscape. So you can do like fly-throughs and you can take a picture of a QR code and, sort of pan the phone around. To your point though about the Pinterest, I think even when, to Terry's point, when a client's like, well, I don't know, inspire me, like we're coming to them with our own Pinterest pages and when we're doing the visioning process, we're showing them things out of our portfolio and saying, these are spaces that we've done for other clients and what do you like, what don't you like about it? And so that you can hone in to what they're attracted to and what their design should be.
I think though it's
visioning is important because they might not have an idea, but then we can meet with them, ask them questions, and continue to do a deep dive, and from that kind of curate that information and create a vision before we introduce past projects and images and anything like that, like really curating a project specific to them.
I think the bottom line though is, before, we have a process that we use internally to develop a design. But our clients more than ever want a design journey. So it used to be visioning, and then we'd come back and we'd understand the client, we'd glean all this knowledge, and then we'd come back and say, here's our recommended solutions, there might be optionality in that. And now it's, whether it's Pinterest boards, it doesn't stop at the Pinterest boards, right? And they're bringing their own experiences and prejudices and personalities to the design. So I think, like, if I talk to younger designers or something, I think one of the greatest skills you could hone is to become a storyteller And not only understanding, like you were saying, like what are they really getting at when they show us an image or something, but how do we tell them that we're solving a problem? Because we're not thinking about the couch. We're not thinking about that wood slat ceiling element that, you know, we're tired of seeing. You know, we are thinking about problem solving, right?
Yeah.
We're thinking about how they're going to be more productive, what's the experience for the employee going to be, and it's a much bigger picture that, you know, the Garden Channel or something like that can give you. That's why we're the experts. So it's, you have to like build a trust in your clients now so that they look at you as the expert and they trust you when you make a recommendation.
Well, and that speaks to the future of design.
Yeah.
And like, how do we make ourselves valuable to people? Because, you know, it has to be the bottom line and like the efficiency that we're creating and the functionality that we're improving, and that they're saving money by using us ultimately. And we're not just, you know, doing wood slat ceilings.
Sorry. I think everybody can relate, but anyway.
From IKEA.
But if I'm like, you know, going back to having a finance leader or someone being on the business side or on the brand side, which, you know, you've got to make these trade-offs for spending the money on like that thing versus spending the money on the person who is trilingual, who like greeted you every day, who like made the experience ultimately better. Like it gets more into, I think our role as service designers actually is sort of blurring a line, right, between that understanding about the larger human experience that we're trying to create. And so it's about being judicious and knowing that, you know, actually the client's expectations are service design, right? They're delivering on behalf of that, and we're delivering. Sometimes it has been traditionally like a space and then it stops there. So it's like also trying to be more conscious and more empathetic now than ever that oh, well, like this decision that I've been really forcing you to make meant you had to maybe make that other trade-off that actually objectively was a better experience for, you know, that was more complementary to like ultimately the vision of what they're trying to fulfill. And I think that's actually really exciting because that means there's more opportunity for us to like play different, you know, roles to sort of like, you know, be a part of that, you know.
And those are the conversations I'd rather have all day long.
Absolutely.
Than look at your Pinterest board, right? How can we make you more successful as a business? How can we make your people happier and healthier? And that, in the evolution of the 20 years I've been doing this, is like the most exciting part about where we're going in design.
I totally agree with that. And that speaks to partnering with your
Yeah.
client, right? It's not just we're delivering a project for them, it's a partnership.
How do you talk about that with like a younger designer or someone that's coming into the industry, getting a sense of what they can, you know, really gain in this industry? I mean, I know I'll tell a, you know, relatively personal story, but when I was in school, when I was in school, and you know, I was a server, and you know, right before I got out, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to design restaurants, it's going to be fantastic, I'm going to eat for free everywhere, it's going to be amazing. That is not at all what I do. That is not in any, you know, nothing about that is right. And so the generation that's kind of coming out now, that's coming out of school, like, I mean, I did not realize when I was in school how many avenues there were in this field. I mean, there's project management, there's construction, there's design, there's manufacturing, there's, oh my God.
Workplace strategy.
I mean, it just, I mean, how do you kind of, you know, how do you kind of learn, like, you know, where you kind of fit in, and, you know, that next generation, what are we looking for, and how are we trying to engage them?
Well, from my experience, you know, managing and mentoring the younger generation coming up, I try to meet them where they're at, and I try to find out what they can offer, and I want them to get their feet wet very quickly. So I often find that I work with a lot of creative minds, so that means that I'll give you a very technical task, probably right up front. I'm like, okay, well, you have to do lots of demolition plans right now, and they got to be due, you know, giving them those little tasks one at a time. I'm like, this is going to have to be done. This industry sometimes is black and white, And that's where your value is at the end of the day. Did you do it right? Did you do it wrong? Where can we improve? And some, of the younger generation are really just can do that in a snap, and some of them are on the other side, and you have to manage them from the other perspective. And you have to be like, okay, well, you can do black and white, but you need to grow in the creative department. And you'll find that each of these personalities is hungry for a lot in design. And it's just like, yes, you're amazing at design, but you need to learn how to draw. You're amazing at drawing, but you need to learn how to design. And in the middle is you. You have to be this mentor. You have to be this conduit for them to achieve more. Because at the end of the day, we're a community and it's a profession, and you want it to be more than you are today. So you more or less just meet them where they're at, be in their talents, and watch them fly,
And you mentioned this earlier, it's about, it can be so much about integrity. Just sort of that it's not just to be a part of the sexy stuff, but see it through. Right, see it through.
The details are amazing.
Shop drawings, those are sexy.
Right. I think I'm seeing a lot of kids, not necessarily even kids, coming out of school, and they already have their LEED certification. So I think that schools are focusing on being more sustainable and more green in the market, which I think is great. Because it's not an endless supply of resources on this planet. I think we all understand that. But I think that schools are hard pressed to really tell everyone what all the avenues are that you can go through. And they're very good at getting everyone to think creatively. And then I do feel like a little bit on our end, once they come into the industry, we're all about beating it out of them about this is the reality. Everything can't be the golden palace.
So I think to that point, just as it's important for us to partner with our contractors and our manufacturers, it's just as important to partner with our educators. Mm-hmm. We have to bridge that gap between going to school and entering the workforce, because oftentimes you're like, okay, I finished school, I survived, I made it through studio, now I'm getting into the workforce, but we have to still connect with them. Mentorship is not just in the workforce, it happens in school too. And it's amazing to see some of the designers that are still mentoring kids that are seniors in college and helping them with their portfolio and preparing them for what's coming next. So we have to go back to them and kind of educate them on this is the future of design, this is what's going on. I think this should be taught in school. We should start integrating this into the design field, and I think that's something that we can continue to build upon.
I think it needs to be done, because honestly, coming out of my design program, I was blind. I didn't know where I can go, and I only had one resource, and I was lucky to get that job because it was during the recession. So, and it was hard times back then, and it could have been that people were not bridging that gap just because there were no educators that were friends with architects because maybe they didn't have a job anymore. But it really is, we need to reach out to these schools, these CETA accredited programs, not just SCAD. I mean, SCAD does an incredible job with having mentors, but all these other design schools, I'm looking at you. Because it's hard knowing what you even have an opportunity to do coming out of school. What do I do with this degree? Where do I go?
Yeah,
There's
no
so
one
many
knows
options.
what they don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So for me as a mentor, it's really making sure people can kind of touch everything, not to put them in one category, but really I feel like everyone's a sponge coming out of school. So really, one, make them feel valued, but two, also, make sure they have the opportunity to kind of touch every part and pieces, the sexy, the not sexy, the CA, the, starting at the very beginning, and really involve them so they can see where they want to go next.
Well, let them form those relationships too. You already have the relationship with the contractor, with the furniture dealer, with the lighting designer, with all those people. Let them be that point person and have them build those relationships with those people, because you're going to be doing this for a while to come, and that's all about building their career. Tracy, you were saying something a week ago about how people come to your industry. They don't necessarily come to you right out of school, but there's an ebb and flow with the...
Well, I think in the big downturn, they did, because we know it was rough for a minute there. Hopefully that'll never happen again. But yeah, I was mentioning last week, you have good memory, that we don't see a lot of people coming straight out of school into sales. I don't know if there's just not a really sexy show about it. Maybe we should have saleswomen or something. But it doesn't, it's the last thing they think of. We're not going to find any manufacturer's rep.
I think so, at school, they don't feel like they're part of the design process if they go into sales.
Well, plus the fact that I think that they've just spent 4 years with a hyper focus on learning about design, learning creativity, learning how to put documents together, or learning about sustainability. And a good majority of them are interested in going into a firm to find out, only to then look around and see the reps who come in at lunch and serve lunch and, hey, take your drinks, and this is all fun and dandy.
Bring snacks.
And and bring us lots of food, make us fat rolls.
Our giant tote that has no end of gift cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, at some point, they may recognize that this is an industry I still want to stay in, but this may not be a good fit for me.
Right.
So then they kind of look into other avenues, or it might be with a real estate firm, or it might be with a project management group. And you start to recognize where your strengths are after a certain amount of time. It might be 3 months, it might be 3 years, it might be 10, who knows? But it is true that the industry has so much to offer, and you've been sitting at this table. We come from all different walks of life within this great industry village.
I think that ties back to the very beginning, though, is that we need to, really let our young designers know that if our reps are coming in, or if a contractor is asked us out to lunch, or MEP, whoever the consultant is, or whoever the partner is, that we need to give them respect, because they are so much a part of the solution that we are. And I know when I was younger, it was kind of like, oh, well, that's down the food chain. I don't want to do that. I want to be the prima donna designer. And that's just not the case anymore. And the best manufacturers reps are the ones who were designers, and they understand what the heck you are trying to achieve. And, the best contractors are the one that, you really roll up your sleeves, and they understand design intent, so that we can all get there in the end, no matter the path we took. So I think we got to remember to really treat each other with utmost respect.
And there's the part we don't talk about, that these people go between firms and can be a really good resource to you to figure out, different attitudes that maybe opportunities or things. When you get laid off, it happens. Luckily, right now we have a really, really, really good economy. But it's not a bad idea to have a good relationship with people, so that when, if something happens, you have resources and you can call on them, not just for projects, but for your own personal growth development. Or maybe something like this, like a podcast.
I also think that organizations like IIDA and ASID and different organizations like that, there's so many crew, and they can offer someone an opportunity to connect with people that they wouldn't even connect with within their own office. So, and that might, for a young designer, open their eyes to, even if they start as a junior designer at a big firm, they might realize, oh, there's all these other options that I didn't even know about because I didn't learn it in school, and no one's really talking about it in my office because I don't want to talk about how I'm maybe not happy totally here, and I want to see what else there is. It's like becoming a rep. A lot of times somebody will start and work for a couple years in design, and then they'll move to the rep side. And
I think it's really important to value your reps just as you value the other people that you work with. So they come in and they want to give you all these things, but at the same time, let's check in. Are we cool? Are you okay? Do you need a break? Let's treat them like human beings, Yeah, they have all this.
Too much. You will never get anything done.
At the same time, you guys know what I mean. It's about coming from a place of respect and valuing each other's time at an equal level. No one's lesser. And I think that's key as we develop these relationships, that we are equals in this.
And
I would say that applies to ages as well.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
I think there's nothing wrong with having
As you mentioned,
Yes, sister!
No, I think at our firm, we're very horizontal, and we don't have a design director, and we have a lot of different people that are putting out great design, but it's also about respecting the younger people for their opinions and letting them speak and it being a collaborative.
Yeah, I think there's something amazing with, people that are younger into the profession. They're not tainted by,
Budget.
budget, schedule. I mean, they are abstract and outside of the box, and I think that should be tapped more.
Yeah. I think it's okay to have mentors, like a series of mentors across the industry that are in different firms, because like my firm is really good about having this mentorship program, and anyone that's been with us for a year has the option of getting a mentor. But I think even within your own firm, you're not necessarily always comfortable with the things that maybe you want to ask someone about that might be a little touchy for that firm or something. So being able to have those conversations with somebody that's outside of your firm and maybe has a little broader perspective, like that's a great thing, to have and to just continue that conversation. I think it makes us all stronger in the end.
And
Do you learn?
Oh, sorry.
Do you learn anything from the younger generation?
Yes.
Not to put you on the
That was social media.
What is this Instagram?
I learned a lot of
I
words,
taught
phrases.
some very young designers some tricks on the computer just the other day, and I was very happy.
Very proud of yourself.
But I think one thing, Kristen, you had mentioned this, or was kind of alluding to this earlier, is, if you're design, like I remember like years ago, I am at a bar having drinks. Met this dude. He's an illustrator for a company, like a pretty well-known company. So he was creative, and he was talking about he didn't know what I did, but he was talking about their new office that they just had built, and he was sort of railing about how terrible it was, and he was like, I can just imagine. He was telling me this. I can just imagine the conversation that happened, some designer thought they wanted to put our art on a focus wall, and they put an accent color around it. And he's just like, I didn't give about any of that. I just wanted to places to create and put my shit up. And so I think it also was pretty humbling, even years ago, for me to kind of hear that, where it's just we get in our own heads sometimes about especially when we design for other creatives, about what those meaningful experiences are, and to sort of be clever about be clever but not cute, what I mean, and not stumbling over ourselves to just create something that we think is really cool, but ultimately does it really matter? Going back to the young generation of talent, of whether it's in our industry or in an industry that we're designing for, sometimes we can create a bubble with our clients about what we're telling them or we're influencing that is really cool, but actually the space of the people who are there are this is not dope shit. You know what I mean? This is not what I want to be a part of. I don't like this vibe. So I think that we've got to.
Are they bleeping?
We're
I get the invite.
By the way, totally fine. As I've come up through my career, I've realized I'm not the one that needs to have all the answers, right? It's about recognizing the good problems or the good solutions or the good design when it crosses your desk, whether or not you were the one that put it together, and then really taking those bits and pieces and putting it into something cohesive. So I love, the free spirit of younger designers, of the younger generation, and having these big ideas about things, whether or not they're actually achievable, and then just being able to kind of pull those things in and making something successful in the end.
Yeah, I think we're an incredibly collaborative environment, so hearing multiple points of view just make for a more successful design. No matter what age, what rank, what title, etc. Everybody has a point of view. Let's hear it, and I think it creates a successful solution.
And that's going to help your younger generation grow. Sorry, Jennifer. When we were talking about the mentoring, that's what I was thinking about, was just, giving some of the younger generation a voice, an opportunity to actually bring something to the table, not just giving them some meaningless task, like go make copies or something like this. Give them something real that has to do with the project, and watch them try to succeed. And if they do, great. If not, you may do encourage them, but just keep pushing them out there.
Yeah.
I think.
Jennifer, it's your turn.
You have the floor. So, no. But back to like successful projects, the perspective of design can sometimes be too grand. And when you spoke about the illustrator, like the people in the space, like they may not feel the same things that the design was intended to deliver. So sometimes you have this beautiful space and then you realize, like a person comes in and they realize like, I can't get to the trash can because the fridge is all the way over here. And it's like those simple functional things that kind of remind us like, oh yeah, this is beautiful, but oh, that's probably something.
Hopefully your client remembers they told you to move that.
Well, I don't know. Or
I hope as a designer, you know what that triangle is, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think the truth though is that like we're all at different stages in our career too around this table. You know, we're all learning and going through growing pains, you know, in our roles. So there's obviously the things I think at an entry level that are easy to anticipate and kind of talk about. But I mean, I can speak for myself. I've learned a lot from the younger folks that I've been working with at our office about myself, about how I communicate. And I think that I've been very humbled, so I think learning lessons from them about how we relate as people that are leaders, teachers, that translates, I think, into how we communicate with our clients, how we communicate with our other team members. For me, that's the thing. It's like it has less to do with this like fresh, creative, young kind of energy, and it has for me. I see them as a way for me to grow too. In ways that I was not trained to grow in. I was not trained to be a project manager. I was not trained to, empathize with people. I was trained to. I mean, it's a thing that you function. I mean, I think I'm an empathetic person, but like, it becomes very clear when you're starting to mentor people that you have to meet them where they're at. It's not about what your vision is for their career. I mean, I have no idea what the people working with me want to do 10, 15, 20 years from now. They don't know what I want to do, So I try to be careful about not making assumptions about where they're coming from or where they're going, because everybody's different. And I've just, I've learned a lot about myself working with the younger folks in the office, more than probably I've taught them, honestly.
And have an open mind. I mean, listen to their ideas. Maybe they're bringing something you didn't see. Like you had tunnel vision, you were looking at a certain issue, one perspective. They can bring something new to the table. And I know I've been surprised by some of our younger folks in our office.
I always say, tell me why.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you could sell it and you could tell me why.
Oh, I love that reason.
And they're going to learn that too.
Tell me why. Why is this a good idea?
I've been fortunate enough to work with the NCIDQ prep class the last 8 weeks. And just watching them and their passion to gain more knowledge and more understanding and more diversity in our industry has been really uplifting for me as well, because I'd rather join them because they still have that great spirit and that great interest in this industry. And so, not that the elders like myself do not have that anymore.
I have a question about that.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, and I've had the opportunity to work with some college students as well, and their passion for sustainability and their interest in the humankind is so deep that it may or may not work well for them once they graduate, but they really do have the passion and the sense of community and all those other things.
So with the NCIDQ, the practicum now is on the computer versus hand drafting, like I think most of us probably took it. So in the prep classes, are you doing the practicum, test?
That's national secrets. I can't give them away. We have opportunities where there is the exam that it's a practicum exam that you can download for a certain amount of money and use it for a month, and you can take it as many times as you want, so it's very helpful that way. And then we also, of course, there's the ballast book that's now about this thick, and we run through some mock-up questions and that. You just don't drag and drop in what we do. It's all PDF. It's not, you don't do the same practicum as we used to.
Right.
So.
Which is a shame, because I really miss
taking that little drafting board.
No, it's not,
and-
actually, it's the quality of just hand by hand.
I agree.
It's not necessarily the test, because the test was terrible, but,
And my lefty self might disagree
Oh.
with you. Thank God my hands.
I was about to say, well, no, I'm a lefty, but I mean, the idea of being able to draw, and, I mean, it's such a skill that I feel like people hide behind a computer a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I'll ask.
To be able to napkin sketch?
Yeah, you asked about technology. Mine's trash paper and a Sharpie pen.
I don't think one's right or wrong now. I really don't. I think it's the tools that you learn. And when I was in school 23 years ago, I mean, I could render the hell out of something, and
Oh, so bad.
and I look back at those drawings and I'm like, oh. But that's a tool I learned and worked on. Whereas today it's a different set of tools. And so while I love hand, it's like I don't think there's a right or a wrong.
I mean, I'm sorry, if you can't do Revit today, you can't work.
Wait, I have a
Oh.
question. I have I have big questions about Revit being a creative tool. And everybody probably does this differently and got different processes. At our firm, we use a lot of SketchUp up front, and then we take it into Revit and CDs. And I'm curious how everybody feels
Our
about
architects do
Revit
that,
as a tool when you're in design.
I think that, the process needs to be unique to your team, and that Revit, it shouldn't be a pair of handcuffs. And it shouldn't keep you from doing the design that you want. So you have to have a team that can do different kinds of strategies. If you need somebody to sketch, if you need somebody to do the SketchUp and then take it into Revit, that's what you should be doing. But if you feel like at this point that Revit is just slowing you down, and don't let the software dictate your design, ever.
But it's like this argument of, I love this conversation because I'm so
We've been having it.
I'm
so much.
internally torn about it. Like it's like it's like when you get into an argument and it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to win? I feel like that's the dichotomy of this is like, do you, ultimately we're in a, you can't, it would be pretty futile to write off that we as creative humans are more intelligent than computers can be. Ultimately, if you think about where the industry is going, it can process far more things and it will evolve to be better. And I just think and we could debate that in itself.
I want to hear people at the table though.
But does it make us more human?
No, I was going to say, so in grad school, computers were coming on the horizon, okay? And AutoCAD released at 12, and I signed up for a class. I signed up for a class that, my education was all about hand sketching, drawing, drafting tables, drafting boards. But the class was it was going to be as a design studio, and 100% you partnered with somebody, and it was 100% on the computer. And he's like, you can have a notebook, a sketchbook on the side, but everything you do, all the design moves you're going to do are going to be done in the computer. So if you're testing massing, if you're testing whatever, we're doing the computer. And it was such a challenge because I was wired a different way, but I think you have to acknowledge that people in schools today are coming out and that is their design tool.
That's
They think it's
their
do that. So for me, I'm kind of like, whatever gets you to the end result, whatever tools you're using is great. But for me, when it lives in the computer, because, sketches are physical form. So when they're on walls and stuff, when you're in architecture studio or interior design studios, the stuff is out, so you see it, and you're inspired by it. You're looking at your neighbor's work and saying, well, wow, we have the same problem. You're looking at that different than I am. You're learning. And for me, that's the biggest, how do we solve for that? Because it doesn't matter to me the tool you're using, but the shift to the computer, it tends to live in there. And plus, not want to be safe with fair to the environment, not printing everything anymore. Things live in the computer. how are we inspiring each other? How are we learning from the mistakes and the
And what do we,
exploration and the iterations that we're doing in there? We may never see them. We may just see the final result.
Well, I think regardless of your tool, like all of us at this table need to be able to envision things three-dimensionally. You know, that's why we're brought to a table a lot of times, because most people who aren't in this industry can't envision space in a three-dimensional way. One of my designers actually is really Revit savvy, and she has Inkscape, and she uses that. She takes things in and out of Inkscape. She changes materiality and things like that, and it really helps to inform the design decisions that she makes on things. So for her, you know, Revit is her tool, and she uses it very well. You know, for me, I'm going to get in Revit, and it's going to take me half an hour to change a node. Like, that's not my tool.
But I want to, like, from Jane or Deanna, who I know are in it all the time.
In the end, what are we producing? What are we showing our clients? We're showing them 3D renderings that we're walking them through, and we're producing documents from Revit. So you need to have the Revit skills in order to be able to complete the set. We can sketch all day long. Absolutely, I highly recommend it. I print out my Revit views and I sketch on top of them to convey ideas so that we can then choose the right idea to model, so we're not modeling 5 different things. But in the end, we need to have the tech-savvy skills to be able to complete and produce the stuff. And Jane, you can speak to it too, because I know you work in it every day.
Yes, and I do agree that at the end of the day, we are producing these sets of drawings, but to your point, where do we bridge the gap between these hand drawings versus drawings that live in the computer? And I think it goes back to working together as a team and collaborating. And recently, we've just had an amazing opportunity with a client where we've started work sessions with them, where we'll bring some of these wireframe 3D views, but we'll lay them out on the table, we'll pin them up, we'll start sketching, we'll listen to them. What is their experience? What's the story they want to tell? How do we manifest that in the design? And how do we get to that solution? And seeing that transform through that process, it's really been amazing. And just really translating that throughout our teams and making sure that we're pinning up our 3D drawings, we're sketching on top of that, we're making that process fluid. I think that's something we have to continue to expand upon.
I think it explains it better to the client. I mean, I'm even seeing on This Old House these days, you know, where they're talking to the designers and the architects. They're taking it into a 3D modeling program.
but before drawing, it was models.
How do you get
Or
there?
not before drawing. Drawing's been around for a long time. But, but like building models, I feel like are still the most emotional thing, and how many, like, they're still the most emotional, like, artifact of, like, making what we do feel more human to us. It doesn't mean that it necessarily makes the experience better. It doesn't mean that for the outcome, it doesn't mean that, you know, it's like all these other, like, layers, but it feels really great because we feel more human doing it. And that's important because I think that also then translates to the work, like, as an art form. But I think there are other, you know, I can't help but question, we're all, like, talk about the different age groups that we're in, but I would say that we're all going to be practicing for, you know, at least another 30 years. So what? I'm sorry, but Social Security, your ass is going to practice for another 30 years. You thought you were off the hook, but you're on the hook. But I think, you know, like, probably half the people at this table will choose at some point over the next 30 to 50 years of their lifetime to be augmented in some way to enhance their experience that will make them less human, and they'll like choose to make that trade-off.
Why are we becoming less human?
It'll question what it means to be human. Like, will an augmentation of some kind make
Like a
me
robot?
less human, or will it be an enhanced human?
Like a Borg?
Well,
Cyborg?
but I think that some of this all goes back to fundamentals. And if you are sitting in a meeting with a client, it's a whole lot easier to pull out a roll of trash and overlay and have that skill so you can draw an 1/8 inch and show what an idea could come together as versus, let me get out my computer, let me pull up this drawing.
Yeah.
There's a lot more quick
I think you could walk a
Just more
client through a
flexibility.
space, though, if faster on the computer and give them a sense of, instead of looking at this view and just reacting to that, and maybe it's not as monumental as you want it to be or whatever, but, oh, let's pan around and look behind you, because the showstopper's behind you.
Yeah.
So, like, being able to understand the space in its entirety and the experience and the moments.
Yeah, I think
I
I'm
think
talking more
Like iterative?
inception,
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
project,
yeah.
more
I think-
about, adjacencies and, just,
Expression.
Yeah.
just the first
Big
impressions.
boobs, yeah.
These are
Exactly.
different phases of the project.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, I
That's-
could never do a set of CDs on trash. I mean, we'll
Right.
be honest. I mean, I may have been my.
But if they did and tried to sell an idea.
It was called Mylar, and when I started.
Did you have an electric eraser too,
I
with a
sure did.
shield?
Back to the original point, I would venture to say that anything you can do in SketchUp, you can do Revit. It just is a matter of knowing how to do it efficiently.
But it just, okay, and that's fine. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, some people are definitely more adept at Revit because they've been doing it, all through school. But it feels like when you're trying to get really technical about building things, that maybe you're focusing more on building them right versus just the big idea. And so that's what, so we take SketchUp and we were pushing and pulling and, I mean, I don't draw anymore, so I'm just like talking about what all these great designers we have do.
I mean, you
But I
get
think that's
so
where
many
you're
different
coming from
delivery
when you're talking
methods all
about
the
being a
time. Like,
slave
what does that
master.
mean for the
I
outcome?
say,
Yeah.
it's all great to hear about the technology, but,
What do you
We
prefer,
work
a trash sketch or a?
I definitely heard loud and clear from many clients and sat there and watched them react to architects and designers drawing in front of them, and that had the greatest reaction. They were emotionally tied to their architect who they had hired and who was sketching for them, and so I understand that, and I understand the value we could add to actually put some kind of actual real price onto a sketch. And we have to do it all the time. The part that I am excited about that we're just not at yet is can the Revit model go right into a shop drawing and then production? And it can, in certain instances in our industry, it's primarily mechanical, ductwork and systems and laying out.
But doesn't that get a little bit too much into means and methods?
Well, I'm just saying, from the contractor standpoint, like the exciting part for us is not as much what you're talking about. And it's more about, well, when does it get to the point where we really can flow right into a seamless approach? I mean, at Georgia Tech, we did a project where they paid us to try and do 5D where, drawings were.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you expand on that a little bit? What is 5D?
Up to the ceiling and above and
a
around.
model with costs loaded into it and schedule loaded into it, and so say you remove a wall, this is how long it would change the schedule and cost.
Yeah.
Or you added this millwork and this is, so, now, it didn't work exactly. It was a trial. And so Georgia Tech, we're lucky, is pushing things like that so that our industry can all try and learn and
see if it's
grow
successful,
and
see if it
can work or not. And so they paid us and Smith Dahlia and others, consultants to try. And, but that's the part I'm hearing y'all's part, and I'm saying, sitting here thinking, when, it would be exciting to get to that next point. And I think we're close. I think we really are. And
The subs that have to catch up.
we certainly, from my standpoint, I want to coordinate, I want it to all work seamlessly, and
But to
Yeah.
John's point, it is true, like the clients think, all you have to do is push the button, and it all comes together.
we're not there yet.
On the
but-
residential side, because everyone watches these shows where everything is
God.
like, just like that. So we have this idea, here's the
30 minutes.
rendering.
Actual Pinterest.
So we have
Not helping.
on-staff designers, because we're design build. So we have on-staff designers, but we outsource the architecture. And we only use architects that do Revit, because we do a lot of historic preservation, additions, and with a lot of tricky roof lines and things like that, and it's just impossible to convey that to the client without a 3D rendering from Revit. So there is an architect that I've worked with in the past that I would really like to use, and I think he's a great architect, but he does flat elevations, and then he hand sketches over them. and they're beautiful, and a lot of people really respond to those. But
Because
at the end
it's
of the
art
day,
at that point,
because
yeah.
it's more artistic, but at the end of the day, if we can't convey how this gable's connecting to that roof line and this hip,
It's not going to be built.
right? So, you know, we don't use him because of that, and that's
Part of it's speed
unfortunate.
to market. I mean, everybody's being asked to do more,
Yeah.
faster, better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's means and methods.
Yeah.
Like, it's individually driven, I wouldn't even say it's company driven, like, whatever it takes for you to do your best work the most efficiently, that's the tool you use.
And that's where we come into play, and we go to our subcontractors, our resources, and, you know, that's where our partnerships come in play, is really with our subcontractors. Hey, this is their idea. How can we get this built?
Yeah.
Working together to make it happen.
So I'm going to pivot from that to you, Tracy. So we
To the corner.
I lost you guys after Revit. I was like, that's
This is right there with it.
There's never,
She was Pinteresting on her phone.
Oh, really?
So,
there's never going to be a replacement for like the touch and feel of things, you know, which is
Well,
primarily what you work
but this is, so we get into, so again, we're in Revit world at this point. And a lot of people talk about pace and speed and this, that, and the other, and not picking up the phone. But, you know, there are manufacturers that don't have things on Revit, and I know.
We build them.
I just
For
ran
you.
into it the other day. And see, I spend just as much time trying to
Right.
find something that is
Close.
close
Yeah.
than just going, oh, just use this because it's here, and that automatically becomes the solution. It's not. It's no longer what I was envisioning. It is now what's easy. So, from your
Well-
standpoint, like, I mean,
Right.
how do you feel?
Well, I just think it's wrong, Cass. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say shame on them. I mean, we got excited when we had Chair Builder. Like, all of a sudden, clients could update a chair in real time. Like, this is amazing. Like, the designers were like, yeah, we've been doing stuff like that for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I think that manufacturing is a little bit slower to that because the problem is they're not really working in Revit when they're designing chairs, for example. That's not, well, I won't say everybody, but a lot of times we're using different programs
Like a real
internally
chair.
for what they're doing.
Fabricate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would,
on a
yeah, it
thing.
is so
Yeah.
much easier
They're
for
using
me to go
trash.
from Revit to a furniture package. It helps everybody. It's just like, oh, that Revit symbol happened, and
Isn't that
now
less
I
of
can
an issue,
just
though?
like
It's surprisingly
tag it,
difficult
put it
to
in a
build
thing.
Revit families for furniture.
What'd you say?
It's surprisingly difficult to build Revit families for furniture.
Well, I would just like to say it's surprisingly easy to sell furniture with Revit symbols.
Yes.
Yeah, but is it, you know, when you talk about them not having Revit, are you talking about the majors? Like, you know, obviously the
Anybody.
system.
I'm talking about
Anybody.
Anybody.
I mean,
think
if I go
people
to your
are
website and I can
All
download
in
that.
Revit.
like,
Even some of the
bam, bam, bam.
majors, for some of their specialty products,
It
they don't
makes it
have,
seamless, right?
they don't have Revit models. on
I
them.
I actually represent, well, one of my lines
So-
is smaller, but obviously they do things that need to layer into, you know, the RCP. So they have everything in Revit. I'm surprised to hear that they don't have things in Revit, because even if we don't have it right now, if you requested something from me, we would make something for you and then send it
No,
to
and that's not to say that you can't make something, but again, we're talking about time and speed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the idea of going, oh, and no offense to any designer at this table, but we're procrastinators. Like, I'm
What?
terrible at it. I know.
Fair
We don't have time anymore to procrastinate. No,
Going
who's
home tonight to work.
procrastinating? No, but reality is, though, if there is a BIM symbol and there is a manufacturer that you know has those BIM symbols, you use those, and the client ends up falling in love with that chair that they see
every
in that
time.
rendering.
Yep.
And you end up using that manufacturer most times. And that's just the way it is. So it is a shame when you don't find your lights or the furniture that you really want on that project because it's not in a BIM symbol, and you're just like, oh, this is a representation of a chair. We're going to show you the chair in real life, but you can't see it in this rendering.
Yeah, but you don't want to
That's
say that.
frustrating.
You don't want to say this is a representation of the
Right,
chair.
you wanna
Because
say
that's
this
where we're
is the
headed.
chair
We're
that
like,
we're
this is the
using.
chair, this is the fabric.
Exactly.
That's where I need to be.
Right.
If somebody didn't set me up for that, I still like you and I still want to use you, but
still
in my
partners.
deliberation with my client,
It's
you're
tough.
kind of putting me behind.
I think we just found the keynote speaker for the manufacturers conference. Where we talk about updating.
Yeah, you should really like get in touch with us because, like, I mean, for real, like,
God.
I want to This is real and it has to be today.
Well,
I mean,
I
I have
have
a
come up with a
question.
list for you of people to reach out to.
Yeah.
Hopefully no
I
one.
have a question about just small firms versus big firms. I've always worked for small firms, and I do now. And I work for a residential design build firm, but I also do commercial, and it's just me. So when a client needs a 3D rendering or a fly-through, I don't have the time to do that, so I hire it out. And I don't have the skill, because the level, like one specific client that I've been working with for 10 years, they require a big board presentation with very formal renderings, with everything finished. It's not part of the design process. It's like everything's done. Now I'm presenting to a board of 20 people, this is the final design, and they have to sign off on it. I don't have time to create the quality of rendering that I need for that presentation and the fly-through. And I also don't have the skill. I've been doing this for 15 years. I didn't learn that 15 years ago. And I haven't learned it in the last 15 years. So I hire it out. But that's because it's just me. Are bigger firms hiring that level, that really
Absolutely.
high-end level of rendering and fly-through?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
They're hiring it out
It's part
too.
of the process.
No,
See, we're not
we hire
anymore.
in-house.
It's
You don't
Yeah.
do it
It's
anymore?
in-house.
You
It
do
is in-house.
It's in-house.
You do it in-house?
It's either in-house or hired out.
We
but
do
it's
it
part of the
in-house,
process.
but quite frankly, we've been sending it out-of-house because we don't have the time to do it in-house
And
anymore.
I feel like a lot of times it's more affordable to send out.
You do.
It is more
Absolutely.
affordable.
If it's 30
Absolutely.
renderings,
And then you're not
absolutely.
limited by Revit family because you just send them an image and they can make it.
And
put
they
it
make
in
it.
And a
there,
lot of
and
times they're on the
beautiful
other side of the
thing. So-
While you're
world, so it's
asleep,
like they're
they're
doing
here.
it. Exactly. While you're asleep, they're creating.
Submit
You
something
come
for them,
in the
and then
office and you got a completed
This guy in
rendering.
China's putting it together, and the next day you get it when you get in the
And it's
office at 8 o'clock.
beautiful, without a
Yeah.
headache.
And it's more affordable.
Yeah.
So,
We do a lot of stuff in-house to, study the massing and three-dimensionality and what's going on around it or whatever. But then when it really comes to the moneymaker view, outsourcing that so you get the authenticity of every single material and light
Okay.
fixture and furniture. So we're not limited.
I have a question. Do you find that your clients require you to render and do construction documents at the same time
Yes.
through the entire process?
Why can't you?
And how do you do it?
You're not a team
more
of
people.
one.
Not a team of one, exactly.
I think you have to be thoughtful about what the ask is for. Like you brought up, you may be presenting the idea that you've been working as a team together to a whole nother board who's shifted and changed, and you have new leadership that, okay, this is the big pitch, so it's got to be well, and you need to be on time, so keep working on the CDs. So that's part of the partnership, right? It's like, hey, I know this is a huge ask, and I know where you are, and I know you got to stay on track. Whatever resources you need to get together to get it done, this is where I need you to be.
Well, I'm going to go back to the honesty thing too, because I can't imagine any proposal that we would ever put out where we would say, when we're in CDs or CA, we're also going to be giving you renderings.
Yeah.
So I think that just being able to say to your client, well, that's not part of what we're doing right now. Like we're in a different phase, if things change, but to me, that's like where you have to recalibrate. Like, I don't think that our job is to try to keep up with every last demand that the client makes. Our job is to be honest with them about meeting their schedule, staying on budget. Part of their budget is our fee. If they want more work from us, it's going to cost them more money. Do they really want more work from us now? No. I haven't.
And being focused on the,
Yeah,
like on the
Setting the
actual.
right
Yeah, 'cause
expectations.
I
Like
think
these-
that a lot of times where that stuff comes from is anxiety, it's stress, like they're spending a lot of money, their reputations are at stake,
Or they have like board members to
yeah,
answer to.
there's so much that's on the
But
line.
you can't let
and-
that bully you into
Yeah.
a bad decision
Yeah,
and
and-
over-promising.
Yeah,
You
we're
really
trust-
need to
they're
be
their- we're their
realistic
trusted
with
partners.
what can happen.
Yeah, we're providing them a service, but we're not kind of there at the drop of a hat. Like we're people too, we're designers.
and sometimes
That's
they
the
don't even know what they're
biggest
asking
challenge.
for.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're
100%.
asking for something that's not really.
You have to
that's
read
done.
between the
It's not
lines.
There's a
really-
process that
Right.
takes time,
They don't
and you have to
understand it
follow
sometimes.
that. I mean, we run into it on our side with clients and with scheduling. They always want it as quickly as possible, right? But, be realistic with the timeframes you're showing them. And what do I always say? It's under promise and over deliver. Tell them it's 6 weeks and then you finish it in 4. They love you.
Yeah.
I think it's by market though, because we mostly do corporate interiors, but when I get put on these education projects, the Board of Regents is controlling things and the school is controlling things. So you're doing things out of order. And in our corporate clients, we always educate them up front to say these are the design phases and this is when we're delivering these items.
And what
And
we're
you're not going to get
delivering.
renderings after CDs go out. I'm sorry if things change. But with the education projects, it's different, and I'm learning from it. And, you know, I've been in this for a while now, and I'm confused by it. I'm like, why are we updating renderings after the CDs have gone out? This doesn't make sense. Because they want the actual thing that they're getting, and I guess it's because it has to go to the president of the school, which is confusing. So that's something also by market that just needs to be.
Well, you gotta mold yourself to every client.
Yeah.
And
True.
I think, you know, we haven't mentioned it today, but I think a really critical partner for all of us is our project manager partners. And, you know, they are the ones.
I know.
They are the ones. Because to me,
Thank you for finally
that is your
recognizing me.
biggest ally, is because you understand the process. And if we're saying, yeah, that's not the way it works, of course, that's never how we would deliver
I know,
that.
I'm like, I'm
But-
I was like, what?
But if someone outside who is not actually delivering the work is saying, you know, this is the process that's going to give you the greatest success, keep you on budget, keep you on target, keep the eye on the ball, that makes all the world of difference for everybody else in the room, whether it's a contractor, they can't build it in 8 weeks. It's not going to happen, you know, and that's where, you know, somebody said it earlier, we're all allies in this together. Like, we need to be the same hymnal and everybody singing from it.
And be honest about the things.
Yeah.
that we're
Voice
good at.
of reason.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And I just believe when I say that there have been multiple conversations before someone calls you like, hey, I know this is a crazy ask, but we need renderings like yesterday. And so it's like, if you say things like we're not doing it, that's not a good thing. Like we need to know like, okay, we need renderings like tomorrow. What can we do? Not telling me you can't do
What
it,
the
but like,
solution is.
okay, it's gonna be $1 million. Okay, great, I understand. Is there a way we can do that? You know, like it's just partnership.
Could it be 250?
Right. Like expectations, like maybe they don't want the full rendering. Maybe it's just a wireframe and we can just snap it right out of SketchUp. We just need something loose and I'll color it myself. You know, like it's like getting to a solution, no matter if it's at the beginning and we have our partnership. I may need you to bring something in at the end and it's like an audible and you call and we're like, hey, oh my God, the chair never came. I know it's the one you picked from Revit, and I just need you to bring something from the showroom just for this presentation or walkthrough with the client. Like, those are partnerships that bring you all the way through.
That's a good point.
You are the magic maker.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're all on the same team, like, you know that that's a tough ask.
Yes.
And we know that you wouldn't be asking that if shit wasn't hitting the fan and you really needed it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all the trusted advocacy of being a partner for you and being honest. You know?
I have a question for y'all. So,
Dun,
in
dun,
our in technology, you know, we could just text like, hey, can you send me a proposal for this tomorrow, or, you know, whatever. How do you feel about technology and texting clients and what do
You can
think?
ask me for a
I like it.
proposal tomorrow.
I don't mind
Fly,
that.
text me. If
You've
you
got
email me,
to.
It's
Yeah.
I actually tell clients and project managers,
Yeah.
text me,
Yeah.
because I may not read my email till 8
Yeah,
o'clock that night.
Literally, the
Email
last 3 clients
problem.
I've opened up with, okay, we need to, like, what's the method of communication? Are you cool with this? Because I can turn, if this is gonna be it, I'm 100% down for it, because it makes my life
Well, we
easier, it
get
may
so
make
many,
your
we
life
get so many
easier.
emails.
Yeah.
Do you feel too available?
Yeah, but if you like,
No, doesn't bother me at all.
No, well, but I do think that's a problem
But
because
you're gonna have to
technology
know,
is such a part of what we do, you know, as part of our job now. We are so available, right? Like
Everybody's
you
engaged at
can
all
text me,
times.
you can email me, and like there's this point of when do we actually turn off? And I think some people are a lot better about it than others. I'm not, you know, like I'm still answering emails at midnight. But just having that feeling of always being on and available, and you know, like I think drawing those boundaries very early on in the process to say like, hey, you know, after 9 o'clock, I'm with my family. Like you can't call me at my house.
I use technology. It's not super fancy, but sometimes I'll get up at 5 a.m. and work. I don't want to send an email to my client at 5 a.m. because I don't want to wake them up. So I set it to send it to them at 7:30. So I think it goes back to the same thing about midnight. It's like you have to know when to draw the line. It's like I'm doing this right now, but that doesn't mean you're doing this right now,
Right.
and I don't want to interrupt your personal life Same with texting.
It
you know?
also sets a precedent too.
It does.
Like, she's working 24/7, so I can ping her and she'll
Yeah.
respond instantly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's managing those expectations.
We're
And
also
that's
not
externally.
heart surgeons, so like nobody's gonna.
Die.
Well, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
there's never been a design.
But in sales, we,
It's an emergency.
which we, yeah,
Emergency.
we do. Dealers work over the weekend, and
Yeah.
they text me because they're working on a bid package. I absolutely answer them and send them whatever they need. Or, oh, honey, I gotta pull over. Like that's what I have BlackBerry.
Yeah.
So I can, yeah, I do. In fact, we have a rule. Jeff and I have a rule that we clear out our emails every night, and we always try to answer our phone and not let it go to voicemail because we know that if you don't reach us, you're going to call someone else.
That's not
Right?
expectation. That's a hard
I'm
expectation.
gonna
Very
start,
hard.
It is.
I'm gonna test that
I mean,
method.
Yeah.
That's a dependable person, though.
Yeah.
That's the person that's going to help you in a pinch.
Yeah, but
then what-
with having said that,
Next
I
week
own
in
I own
July.
my own business, and so that's kind of the deal, right? But I think a lot of people
Yeah.
in sales would tell you that, because if they don't do that, they probably won't be in it that long, because you guys know who they are. If I send her an email now, I won't hear back from her for 3 days. Like, what are the chances that you're going to reach out to them again? I mean,
None.
zero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll send it to Tracy because I know tonight she'll send me what I need, the links and the stuff, and follow up. I mean,
And you know what? I love my GCs and anybody, project managers. I'm like, text me because we got to do this real time. I
Yeah.
have 30 seconds to focus on
Yeah.
this
Yes.
and get a solution.
Yeah.
And if I can't reach you, it's frustrating. It'll go 2 days, right? Because
no, you need
before my
now.
brain's
Time
back
management,
there,
you know?
and we got to triage what we do. And so if you get the chance to focus,
yeah.
please let's be able to work together.
But going
Yeah.
back to, like, even just the format of text makes people get to the point. It's like
Oh, yeah.
emails are just like,
Yep.
I can't, like,
And,
okay,
like-
what do you,
Just be very succinct.
yeah.
Can it be 2 words?
Like, what's your angle?
Try
Well, see,
for
that's why, like, so Tracy, you and I had this conversation, I guess, last week. You're like, well, if you just put it in the subject line of the email,
Amen.
it works
It's
for an email.
It's
Because then I
pretty
can just look
efficient,
at it and I
yeah.
go, oh, okay, I got it.
Yes, try to be succinct.
So, so we've only got a couple of minutes left to be respectful of everyone's time here, there, everywhere. But just to kind of wrap it up, I want to ask, kind of going back to the very beginning about partnership. Something that I'm kind of intrigued about for everybody here is, where did you develop those partnerships, or what is it that you did to go out and get those partnerships? I mean, every single person at this table has a Rolodex filled with them. So, I mean, how did you guys go out and get them? Was it hitting the streets? Did you start in school? Like, how did you go out and do it? And I know younger generations versus older generations are going to totally vary. Some people probably wrote snail mail.
I remember when I first learned like the value of creating a relationship with my designer. It was working with Perkins and Will, and it was Mina Krennick. She was the designer on the Shaw Contract Showroom. And early on, we were kind of doing this number, but we had like halfway through the project, we had some moments where we started talking about things, like kind of before we would go to our OAC meetings, planning things out, and I learned so much from her, and that was essentially where I kind of picked up the creating the partnership and being a team, like kind of behind the scenes a little bit, and then going to those meetings, just having like a smooth flow. There was no call out, like answering a tough question or asking a tough question. So
I'll tell you where I don't find partnerships is Google. I don't find it, like, if I need a resource for something, I don't go to Google. I call someone that knows the right people, because I don't feel like the internet really connects you with the right people that you might need. Like, we needed a new cabinet company, and I called our countertop guy, and he gave me like 3 great resources. And
But how'd you get the partnership with the countertop guy?
Google.
Light picture
It
guy.
wasn't through Google. He's been around. He's been part of the team for so long. I don't even remember, but it was probably through another sub. To be honest,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Everybody
really
knows
it.
everybody.
Really is like all of it's a connection.
Well, it all comes back to being nice.
Yeah.
Well, and it all comes back to being, if you want to have good partners, you have to be a good partner. Gosh, I hear my mother speaking.
right, like you said,
It is
do what you say you're
true.
gonna do.
I mean, exactly. You've got to be part of the team. You can't think that what you have to give is more than anybody else, because it's all the big puzzle, and it all comes together because somebody's doing the edges, somebody's doing the middle, somebody's, taking the one flower kind of thing, and it's all part of it, and.
Well, this is the hard part to teach the young people. I was thinking about it earlier. We're such an industry focused on delivering results, and I think about our biggest client and May Architect's biggest client. For me, it started with just showing up, and didn't matter what needed to be done. I needed to do a spreadsheet to track replacing a door or fixing some carpet. It didn't matter that it was a big project or a small project. And that was how I built a relationship with our biggest client, and we still do it today for that client. And so, we have others, but that's hard to teach the young generation. It's like,
And a lot of it takes
there's a lot
time,
of little
too.
meaningless parts
It
that
totally
have to go into it to make it work and make it a
Because
success.
relationships become partnerships, which become,
I was taught
units.
it takes, years to create a relationship and then 5 minutes to ruin it. And
Sure.
it's showing up. It's being accountable. It's delivering. So, and again, it's hard to teach.
But it's also, I think, once you get into the business, it's not that hard you need these partnerships, that's what we were saying. So you can't survive out there, you can't deliver a successful project if you don't have these partnerships. So when you start out of school and you start working for a project, your first project, who helped you make you look good in front of the client? Who was that person when you had a problem, didn't know how to detail millwork? What was that sub that's like, hey, this is the most economical way to draw this, right? Then your next project, who are you going to call when you're stuck in the same thing? It's that guy.
Yep.
So, it's also that kind of thing and that kind of partnership. And then, you develop something and you can say, this is the mill worker I want to work with on my next project. He's problem solver. He, helps us
Team player.
deliver
And the
those
brightest-
relationships start to
And it's like
build, yeah.
literally like even in nature, like the brightest stars burn out faster. You know what I mean? Like I think that's like the nature of what are the intentions? Why are you in it to begin with? Who do you care about? And what are you in it for? And so
But you talked about doing it 30 more years. I mean, at a certain point, though, it is enjoyable for all of us to see a project completed, and that gets us going again. And I want to do it again.
And I want to
do it again, right?
20
I'll do
I was
it
at
20
it
more
today
years.
as I did 20 years ago.
Well, and I think it does start at home base, right? So from a design perspective, the reps are always going to come in. They're always going to make themselves available because they always want to sell product. And then forming those relationships with them and who they can introduce you to. And then as you're working for a company that already has clients, they're ultimately going to have to hire out a contractor and then forming those relationships with them. So I think the relationships always come from somewhere else. It's how you nurture them along the way.
Another good thought is, don't take yourself so serious.
No.
Like, hey, we're all, you probably drove here, like, thinking about, I just got a flat tire, I need to change my tire. Or, so much life happens. And, like, even on the call today, this guy was so professional. And mind you, I'm not the most professional project manager, but it's fine. So, he's talking, and I'm like, oh, my God, you grew out your sideburns. They're amazing. And he's like, thank you, and that just made his day. Like
You saw me. I was
right,
like,
yeah,
for a second.
we have lives. Like this is important. Design is important. What I do, my creativity, it's all important. But it's like you kind of just making sure you have a great perspective on what you're doing, and that we're all people and we need love. And however you give that to people, you have to just make sure you do it.
It's the personal.
You give it, you
Yes.
get it.
Personal touch.
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be real. And don't think that everybody just thinks you're this interior designer. Because it doesn't matter what they think. It matters what you bring to the table.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
And both of them could be on t-shirts. One is I render the shit out of it. And the other was be nice. I'm a toss up between the big ask and what was yours? Yours was you have to be a partner. Wait a minute. You have to
Be a good partner to have a good partner.
That's my takeaway, Cass.
Me too. So on that, I will say thank you for everybody
Cheers.
being here. Cheers.
Cheers. Enjoyed it. Cheers, cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you all out there.
We really appreciate it. Cheers.
Hope you stuck around the whole time.
Thank you to anyone that's still there.
And to the two people watching.